Hey cats, Eddbud here with another review for your eyes and your ears. This time from SAUCONY and their Triumph 21. I believe this one's due to drop in July of 2023. A long range max cushion shoe with that PWRRUN Plus foam. Let's get into it. Now, this is one requested model that I've had from loads and loads of viewers. People have been saying, Ed,
why have you not tested out the Triumph again?
I think I tested out like the Triumph 17. That was way back, like before the original COVID lockdown. At least we got this one in hand now and an early review for you. It doesn't drop for a few weeks. This is one that's been sent over by SAUCONY for review, but they're not vetting my views before my valued viewers get to see them. I'm not being paid to make this video or anything, so my honest opinions as usual after actually running in the shoe. Before we get into the review, if it's your first time here or you haven't done so already, help the channel to continue to grow by hitting that subscribe button and clicking the bell for notifications. Also give this video a thumbs up like, that helps out a whole bunch, and share it with your running buddies. Dankeschön. Stats for those that are interested. Shoe launches July 11th in Europe. Features a 10mm drop here from heel to toe. I've got about 44mm of stack here in the heel and about 34 up front, so it does tie in with what SAUCONY suggests, a 10mm drop. I've got about 320 grams of weight here, or 11.3 ounces in my UK size 11, US size 12, so very reasonable. Interesting to note here that the PWRRRUN Plus insole that we've got in the Triumph 21 does make up for 8mm of that stack. Some of the outer foam does wrap around the back of the foot here, so don't think it's some sort of gargantuan, massive sort of illegal stack. I do believe it does still stick with the limits that you're allowed for competition runners, but for mere mortals like us, it just doesn't really matter, people. It's a little bit like a sort of Jordan 1 cup sole, really, when you take out that PWRRRUN Plus insole. We got about 12cm of surface area width here on the outsole, and about 9cm in the heel, so it's very similar to that Triumph 17 in that respect. Pretty much everything else is different. In terms of Shore A gyrometer scale, I've got about 23 here for the midsole, and the insole comes up the same as well. They're made of the same material. We'll start with the upper first, as usual. Upper-wise, it's really quite a simple shoe, really. I'm glad SAUCONY are sticking with a nice minimal design. We got a SAUCONY logo on the lateral and the medial side of the shoe. Not much to them. They're a very, very thin sort of overlay. The upper on that Triumph 17 that I had a few years back, and this one are completely different. It's a flat knit upper here and very, very breathable and flexible in the toe box. Some of the older Triumph models seem quite plush. This one, they've scaled things back a little bit, probably to try and get a little bit more midsole foam underfoot. Really like the toe box here, very nice and breathable. It is quite generous in terms of the width and the height. Maybe a little bit too much for me. I could feel my foot sort of moving around a touch, though it didn't really affect me on the run. Do like the very vented nature of this flat knitted upper. There's a little bit of gusseting around the tongue as well, but none of it really stops the foot from breathing. Just shining a light into the shoe there, you can see just how breathable the upper is. Easy to achieve a really good lockdown as well on the Triumph 21. Reasonably standard eyelet chain here with only one lace loop on the lateral medial sides of the shoe. Just helps the upper to grip around the foot a little bit better. They have put some suede sections here on the final eyelets of the shoe. I would assume that's to try to improve the durability and longevity of it. SAUCONY always get a little bit of suede in there somewhere, thanks guys. There's a very long length heel counter back in the rear of the shoe. That provides a really good anchor point to make sure your foot's not slipping around in the back there. And we've also got a pull tab here. Well, it's kind of more like a loop, really. That does extend down right onto the midsole foam. You can feel it sort of inside the upper. I'm not a big fan of those, and I don't really need it. I've not felt the need to use it. I know some of you don't untie your shoes when you put them on, but I do, because I find I just get a much better lockdown. So if you do that, I won't think less of you or anything. I'll try. Even in the warmer temps in England right now, I found this very breathable. Now, I shall say this only once. Over here in England, about 20 degrees is actually pretty warm for us. We've got quite a small range of temperatures, but the temperature changes very quickly as we get into the different seasons. So 20 degrees might not be a very warm temperature where you come from, but here it actually is. So please think twice about doing the
20 centigrade, that's not very warm. In my country, it gets much warmer.
Comment, because people live in different places and there are different sorts of ranges of temperatures, okay? You probably get used to it after a while, but here it's warm for a little while, but not really for that long, and we don't really get a chance to get used to it. Okay, I'm not going to ever mention that again. Laces are super stretchy here in the Triumph 21. I found they actually work very well with the upper featured on the shoe. They allow the foot to expand a little bit, and I would assume this one's going to be used by people doing some longer, slower runs. That's pretty much its forte. As your feet start to swell up on those runs, especially in the warmer weather, you're probably going to want a bit of wiggle room in terms of the lace stretchiness. Very technical there, Ed. Well done. I think the key thing in the Triumph 21 that sets it apart from some of the other shoes in this sort of range, I suppose, is how breathable the upper is now. You've still got it where it counts in the heel to provide that lockdown, but everything else is very, very flexible. Doesn't feel too overtly padded. It's absolutely light years from the Triumph 17 from a few years back. That was almost like a skateboarding shoe compared to this one. I'll give it a 2.6 for the upper after my initial run. Perhaps just a little bit too generous for me in the toe box. I think if you have a normal to narrow width foot, you might have a few issues there with your foot moving around a little bit inside the upper. Maybe a decimal place or two less as well for the inclusion of this loop here that just doesn't really serve any purpose. Though it does have the familiar Saucony garden centre smell. Oh yeah, midsole now. Now, the PWRRUN Plus material here in the Triumph 21 is very, very different to that 17. I got a Shaw hygrometer scale reading on that one of about 33. This one comes in at 23. That is one of the more soft foams I've tested out over the last few years. The pellets seem a little bit more densely packed here. It's a very airy foam. Hear it in hand. Do you hear it? Do you hear it? Do you hear it? Sort of that brittly sort of feel that I really quite like. Very polystyrene-ish. Due to the lighter nature, Saucony have been able to get more of it underfoot, and that's a good thing. Sometimes more of something is like not a good thing, and it's just overkill. A bit like more John Wick films. Do we really need them? Probably not. So an increase in cushion here, and I really did feel that on my long run today. Certainly a shoe for the steady miles and easier long runs. Perfect for today's 10 miles, 16.2 kilometers. Left the legs feeling fresh. 1 hour 20 minutes at 7 minutes 56 per mile pace. Found the midsole to be stable. They're a little bit more compressive than something like the Nimbus 25. It's not as overtly squashy underfoot as the SC Trainer and that fuel cell stuff, and especially not as squashy as the Invincible Run 3. That is the king of squash, though some people just aren't going to want that. I think this is a pretty good balance. Very similar to the balance, actually, that we have in the Magnify 2, coming from Puma very soon. As I say, could be absolutely spot on for someone after some more resilient underfoot feel. Though that cutout here does come with a slightly Novablast trampoline-like bounce. The Triumph 21 does feel a little bit more up for it than some of the other shoes in this category, which leads me to believe that the Triumph 21's got a little bit more up its sleeve than some of the others. At paces of 8 minutes per mile through to about 7 minutes 30 per mile today, keeping the heart rate firmly in the endurance zone, an average of 134 beats per minute. Just more effort into that base zone, really making sure I'm nice and fit, sustaining the fitness, adding in some speed through this week as well. Interesting to note here, I think the 10mm drop won't be for everybody. Certainly one for runners that want a more distinct drop. It's quite prevalent on foot. Did feel maybe a little odd for me as I've been running in lower drop shoes most of the week, the Hoka Rocket X2 and that Liberate Nitro 2. They've got like half the drop that we've got here in the Triumph 21. One little note on weight, I don't want to get too stuck on that, but it is a little bit lighter than some of the other max cushion shoes. I think that's down to the foam. Do consider that this weighs less than the Pegasus 40 from Nike. That's supposed to be like a daily shoe, but I guess you got those air units, it's adding in more weight. Max cushion shoe with 44mm of stack height, less than Nike's daily driver and weight. I can see the Triumph 21 being a winner for you if you're after some very specific things in your shoe. Perhaps if you're a fan or you race in the Endorphin Pro 3, the foam isn't all that dissimilar to that shoe. It's still got that dense yet very forgiving soft squash. If you like the cushion in that model, you're gonna like this one. I do like the profile of the shoe. I might even chance it down the pub later on. I can't see too many people though disliking the ride that we get here in the Triumph 21. I think it will probably get a few early adopters. Felt great on the longer run today. I'm going to give it a 2.7 out of 3 after my initial effort. Good for everything up to that marathon pace for me. I think you'll probably look elsewhere if you want to focus on speed only. This one's a long, steady cruiser. Outsole now. Really impressed with the rubber here on my initial effort. It protrudes a little bit more past the exposed midsole foam this time round in this Saucony shoe. In a few recent ones, the rubber's just not really had a chance to get past the foam. As it all compresses, a lot of that midsole foam actually hits the floor on the surface. Does seem to have caused a little bit of early degradation to that foam. Not here in the Triumph 21. There's a really nice depth to the rubber. It's about 3mm pretty much from the forefoot through to the midfoot and rear of the shoe. Saucony absolutely nailing it this time round with the Triumph 21. The chevron-like grip here does dig into the road really nicely, and I like the fact that they've actually stretched the rubber out way back into the heel here, which should provide some durability over time. Do like the nice grip on toe off, and I even tried it on some gravel tracks. Probably not the best idea with the amount of exposed midsole foam here, but hey, you got to try these things and see what happens, and it came through just fine. Held up alright, and some reasonable surface grip even where you've got loose debris underfoot. No rain or moisture to test this one out at the moment. I may get out on the patio with the hose pipe, but you know, it'll rain sooner or later. I'll probably just wait for that. The rubber here does feel a little bit more sticky to the touch, so whether Saucony have updated it, I don't know for certain, but it's doing all it needs to do up to this point. No complaints right now. I'll give it a strong 2.7 for the outsole after my initial effort. Value now. So I believe this shoe is set to launch in the US for about $160. I mean, that translates to about 130 quid here in the UK. Sorry, Earth credits. I'd assume it's probably going to be more like 155 perhaps. That's what they're selling the Triumph 20 for right now. As someone that's new to this model, or midsole and outsole at least, and upper, I don't really have any major complaints here in the Triumph 21. A little softer perhaps than the Magnify Nitro 2. The outsole appears to be a big upgrade over what we've seen in Saucony shoes in 2022. The midsole foam is interesting and amazingly light and soft. Enables us to have a massive stack there without loads of weight. I think a new max cushion shoe roundup's going to be on the cards. This one really is a bit of a game changer. Certainly a great shoe here, and if you like a higher drop, then you know where to go. No plate as well. A lot of people really hate having a plate in a sort of max cushion long run shoe. Nothing like that here, though there's some reasonable sort of flexibility too. So it doesn't feel like a really rigid, non-daily trainer. I think that will mean it appeals to a few more people than something like the Zoom Fly 5 or like the Boston 11 or the SC trainer even. Bit of a point on the quality of the shoe out of the box. Very impressed. No shoddy glue marks. It's really well put together, no dodgy stitching, just a nice quality item, which I tend to find you get from Saucony. So I think if you've got the Triumph 20, there's perhaps not quite enough for you to upgrade unless you've reached the end of life of that shoe. There's a few updates here that do make it worthwhile though, by all accounts. I think if you're looking for a new max cushion shoe to add to your rotation, this one ticks pretty much all of the boxes. Nice breathable upper here around the sides and the front of the shoe, and a very reasonable weight. I was absolutely blown away actually how light this one is. I can certainly recommend it to you in the same sentence as the Magnify Nitro 2. Looks like it might come in cheaper than the Nimbus 25, the SC trainer, and it could be a great companion shoe to the Endorphin Pro 3. Do want to get some more miles into it and see how it holds up in terms of durability first, but I think I'll give it a value score of about 2.6 out of 3 for the time being. Just a bit of a niche rotation shoe perhaps. Not everybody's going to need this one. If you're doing full or half marathon training, getting in those long runs, it could be a best friend. Shoe friend! If I've added the scores up correctly, that gives us 10.6 for the Triumph 21 from Saucony after my initial runs. Some very promising initial findings here. I'll give you some updates on this over the next few weeks. Are you going to be picking the Saucony Triumph 21 up? Are you a fan of the Triumph series? Let me know down in the comments. musical interlude time for you. So a dip back into the past here. I'm lucky enough to own this one on vinyl. Sounds Incorporated by Sounds Incorporated. This is like swinging 60s stuff. You'll want to put on your Chelsea boots and head over to Carnaby Street and, you know, really dig the crazy sounds. Absolutely love their version of the William Tell Overture. It's just bonkers, absolutely bonkers. Sounds Incorporated were a load of session musicians, really, that were around in the 60s. They used to back some of the big stars when they came over from America. There's a brilliant bit of footage of them actually playing with Little Richard. The sounds produced by the group are just out of this world, even by today's standards. My favourite though is Rinky Dink. This one has to be heard to be believed. It's just completely over the top. There's even one of those sort of penny whistle things in there, and their version of Little Richard's Ready Teddy is just unhinged. It's so fast and just so English. It's brilliant. Go and check it out, people. Sounds Incorporated by Sounds Incorporated. Some of the best 60s English material you're going to find. Right, I'm off to dust off the DVD player and watch some Peter Wingard. Thanks for tuning in, people. Hope you enjoyed today's review. Hit that subscribe button and click the bell for notifications. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up like too, and share it with your running buddies. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you